Hello, this is Conan Stoops and welcome back to another Lumion Legacy HTUC video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the new soul burst form of Celesting, Stellarchime. Stellarchime admittedly doesn't look too great in this meta, but it has a lot of potential that despite its weaknesses and meta matchups, it can still be a very strong threat offensively or defensively when taking into consideration teams and stuff like that. So today's video, we're going to be talking about how to use and counter Celesting. From the counters to checks and teammates you need to know in order to know how to team build around Celesting, from knowing the roles and sets in order to know how to use Celesting in your battles, today's video is all about how to use and counter Soul Burst Celesting. Now, in order to know what Celesting can play in terms of a role on your team, you must look at its base stats, abilities, and typing. So far, Celesting does look to be a very good offensive Lumion, at least base stat-wise. It has a very good speed tier of 121. This outspeeds the likes of Zulong, Soulburst Stratosaur, Chienta, and Hunter, all just base-wise. However, you do get outsped by the suicide leads such as Gurgle, Speed, and Gobidemic, and then you get outsped by Leviatras and some boost users around the base speed tier of 100. This, even though you do get revenge killed like the Lumions below you, you are still very fast and you should never take this speed tier for granted. Besides this, a range attack of 128 is very solid as you can do pretty decent damage whether or not you're defensive or offensive Celesting. Although you do not have any damage boosting abilities, so it is pretty decent to remember that you won't be hitting hard too much, but with setup and under the right conditions you will be. And the energy stat of 111, which is the last thing I'm talking about here, is pretty solid because you get to reach benchmarks of 250 very easily, and then you can go higher, which is very solid. Even though this is a downgrade from your base form, which is 128, it's still a good energy stat to have. Besides this, your bulk does give Soulburst Gastric vibes because you have very bad melee defense of 19, which is the lowest out of any roamer and fully evolution mod, and then you have 150 HP and 114 range defense. This does let you get very good matchups against specific range attackers, which I'll talk about in your defensive typing. Specifically, when you think of range air types, you'd think of Stratosaur, Soulburst Stratosaur at least. You can also think of the likes of Refezu. Those are good air types you can check, which is just very solid. Strict Shot from Spirit types is very good to resist. Also, Fade Away is just a good immunity to have. Ancient types, although there are not a lot of ancient types you'd like to swap in on, at least in Soul Burst form and base form, you can swap in on the likes of Clishadia, Novidius, the Rogo, predicting the Draco Beam. It's just a lot of things you can really take advantage of. Light, Bug, and Mind types are also just good coverage to have, although these coverages are usually accompanied with stuff that can hit you neutrally or super effectively, so make sure you watch out for that. And weaknesses, these are pretty bad even though these are for only. Dark, Electric, Earth, and Brawler are very common and very strong offensive typings that just so happen to mostly be melee with the exception of Electric types, mostly carrying Thunder Strike or in cases Zip Zap and then maybe a Thunder Crash. These are all very common weaknesses to have, but your resistances arguably does somewhat make up for that. However, one more thing, I'll be talking about the base ability in Soul Burst form, which is Effulgent. Consumable items held by the opponent is disabled, which means while they won't be used up, you will be able to bypass the likes of Milkshake, and if I recall, I think you do bypass the likes of pearls, such as Shade Pearl, and all of those stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but items like Health Amulet would still proc because it is a consumable, but basically think of consumable items and then Celesting will be able to cancel those out. And then just to have a summary of Celesting, at least the negative summary here is that it does not want to swap in on melee hits. If you want to swap in on Boiling Presses from Novidius or Outbursts, make sure you are in your base form in order to do so. And make sure to have resistances for Dark, Electric, and all of those weaknesses it has, because all of those are mostly melee moves. You'll have to watch out for that, and make sure you team build around its weaknesses accordingly. Although your positive summary here, it does have a lot of very good attributes. Its damage bulk and speed, at least the range bulk, is very solid. And for Celesting, if you are using this offensively or defensively, this is going to be played out very similar to a Stratosaur. When people use Silver Stratosaur, they usually use the base form a lot of the time because its range bulk and melee bulk is very good to pass up. This will be the same case for Celesting here because you do not want to take hits on your melee defense side in Soul Burst. So what you will have to do on a lot of the time is staying in base, trying to get as much chip as you can, wait a rest, provide utility, and then once that is over, you can start setting up in your Soul Burst form if you are offensive, and then you can start cleaning house. So now we are at the set section. There will be 2 sets covered here, which is going to be the first one, which will be a utility based Celesting that will mainly prioritize its base form and set up barbs and whatnot, while its second form will be a more offensive one. So the abilities of choices here. Mystic Tone is the best ability because you can punish melee attackers and then hit whatever with RNG, although you can choose to run the likes of Reverberate because getting an SA Roamer is very hard, so I understand that. And a Fulgent, of course, will be your Soul Burst ability. Your personality of choice will be Nimble. Nimble will help you outspeed specific Lumions such as Borealis, which I will get into the set section specifically, but Nimble is pretty good for that. Anyways, other personalities can be robust if you are going to be using this base form a lot, although if you are using robust Celesting, you might as well just use the base form and not the Soul Burst one. And then other alternatives can be clever to help your matchups against Stratosaur and Morphezu a lot better. Your moveset is mainly going to be focused on setting up barbs and punishing hazard removers. Because Deja Vu locks hazard removers such as Burn Up, Mudslide, whatever, into that move, you can bring in offensive Lumions that can take advantage of those walls with very strong setup. For example, a lot of Celestings will mainly face the likes of, maybe not Stratosaur swapping it on you, but you can probably face Gargoyle defenses swapping it on you. If you set up barbs, you Deja Vu them into Gusting or Mudsliding, and then you can bring in your offensive Lumion for free, which can be a Vesperatu, a Banuki, which can set up in your face or deal a lot of damage. Flash and Flee will be your main pivoting move. You have a very good speed tier. You might as well make yourself a pretty good pivot lead. And then Metal Blast is going to be for other light types that can try and swap in on you and just having stab coverage. Besides this, the item of choice will be the Cell Burst and then the TPs. So 36 energy will allow you to get through 305 energy at your base form. And then you can Soul Burst form whatever. Because this set will mainly be utilizing the base form a lot of the time, make sure you utilize this energy very well. And then as for your other TPs, 176 speed will allow you to outspeed very nimble Borealis. If the Borealis is running boots, then of course you want to outspeed, so it is important to make sure and scout that. Although when you get into the higher ranks of Expert and Ace, most Borealis are very nimble and not a choice item. Anyways, 200 HP is to max out your bulk as much as possible, and then your 88 range defense will be your leftovers. No really any point to investing into your melee defense, it's not really that worth it. On to the next set, which will be an offensive set that will utilize its stab coverage and its attributes like I said before. Your ability of choice doesn't matter here. Of course, you want your SA as much as possible, but if you can't, then running the normal ability is fine. As for the personality, it's going to be the same one, and then for your moveset, this is where things can change. So Metal Blast and Nova Blast are going to be your 2 best moves for Celesting. As far as I know, the move that it has in Soul Burst raids is not in the game, at least for Celesting's move pool. It might get it in the future. It might be a situation like Icicle Tremor with Icicle anyway, so make sure you are taking into consideration to that. Nova Blast is your best light stab, and then Peace of Mind will allow you to set up and increase your damage as much as possible. Once this thing gets magnified, or if it does, you will be able to replace this, but Peace of Mind is going to be the best setup you have. And then for your 4th move option, Barbs and Deja Vu are going to be your best ones. There's really not a lot of other move cases you can really try and argue. Deja Vu though is pretty good because if Lumians try and set up on you, you can Deja Vu them, move lock them, and then you can go into a melee attacker or something that can force that Lumian out. Other than that, Barbs is going to be your better option, which can help force hazard removers swapping in on you to remove the hazards, and then you can bring in offense for free. Your item choice will be the Celeburst, and as for your TPs, this is very simple. Everything that I've said before applies here. The energy, the range attack, and the speed. 64, this set is very self-explanatory. So now we are moving to the counters and checks section for Celesting. So Celesting does get checked by a lot of Lumians similar to its other light metal counterpart, Valkyrie. It has a lot to deal with, such as Soulburst, Haganash, Lashent, Plasma, Soulburst Gastroke, Pyroland, Vanillin, which aren't on the list for obvious reasons because there's just way too much stuff that Soulburst Celesting will get checked by. And when you take in consideration, even though it does have a pretty high speed tier, you will still be weak to the likes of Preemptive Strike Banaki. You can also consider Quick Punch Your Soul, in that Boots Halvantic is also another Lumian that just pairs very well in this meta, is very common. And then Tatab as another brawler type that can swap in on you. It's not really that great, but of course it is an option there. Other than this, your offensive cores, I will be going over this because there are a lot of cores that Celesting can fit into because a lot of its offensive and defensive checks are and answered by these specific Lumians. So usually pairing Celesting up with plant or dark types are very good ideas because a lot of Celesting swap-ins are either bug or plant types. Borealis are going to be the best Lumian for this, at least in meta-wise in my opinion. Both of these Lumians are fast, they can fit well on offense, balance, whatever, and Borealis also has a lot of good matchups right now. You can run the Deep Reset to hit Luminami for 2-hit KO or 3-hit KO depending on the set. And then of course, when you think of Borealis swap-ins, Celesting for the most part can deal with them at ease. Although if you want to use something more fun, I would suggest using Celesting with Terrafly. Terrafly can take advantage of the Lashents to Soulburst Gastrokes, has very good matchups into the likes of Plasmoth, Pyroland, and Vanillin, and then Celesting here can take advantage of its swap-ins. Its swap-ins aren't really that here too much, but the likes of your snack that can swap in on Terrafly, you can make sure to take advantage of that. You can go into a setup war on the likes of Soulburst Stratosaur, which you will win eventually. And then yeah, that's pretty much it for this section. So if you found the video informational, make sure you like the video and subscribe if you want to see more. I will be doing more PvP guides in the future, and of course, I will be looking for more people to suggest me new things that they want. And then I'll also have other videos such as Lumion Legacy showcases, streams that you can all go check out. And of course, I am being sponsored by Llama Trade Studios for a Gamma Icicle giveaway. I will link the video in the description for that if you want to join and see what's going on. And it will also be in the end card of this video. However, what else should I really talk about for this Celesting? There's really not much to talk about. I think Celesting is going to be a very good and solid Lumian, but it's in the wrong meta. This meta very really does not like it. Lashent, Gastroke, Plasmoth are all over the place, at least in ranked and in tournaments that are not really out on the public. So Celesting can't really thrive in that area, although in other metas where Lashent probably is less common and all of those stuff is less common, maybe in a new meta, maybe like a few months down the line, then I could see Celesting doing a very good job. Although right now, it seems like right now, I don't think Celesting will be too great. It is balanced, it is still a pretty decent Lumian to have. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. This is Cotton Stoop signing off to remind you guys that Zulong is still a dumpster fire.